And he can easily square this all off by saying, of course, everybody should continue to respect the personal choices of those who change their gender.
Male who now possesses a gender recognition certificate amending her gender to female, and sex to be interpreted as including what I will refer to as
Have a great taster.
Thank you very much, thank you, I really appreciate that. What are you doing here?
We're making a garden representing Jesus' resurrection.
Oh, fantastic.
Something big just happened in the UK, and it's causing serious controversy. The Supreme Court dropped a ruling that's got everyone talking, and yet total silence from Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why? When the public is demanding clarity, when MPs are openly clashing, and when tensions are rising across the country, how can the leader of the nation say nothing? Is he dodging the issue, playing it safe, or hoping it'll all blow over? Apart from this, the real question is what the rule is about. Well, to know everything about this, stay tuned. Something major just happened in the UK, and the silence from the top is making things even messier. On April 16, 2025, the Supreme Court made a ruling that instantly sparked heated arguments across the country. The judges agreed, without disagreement, that the words woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer strictly to biological reality, not how someone identifies. This ruling now allows certain places like hospital wards, changing rooms, and sport groups to legally say no to someone if they don't fit that biological definition. It's a decision that affects everyone, from women's rights groups to the transgender community. Some see it as necessary clarity, others see it as a step backwards. But no matter where people stand, one thing's for sure: it's a ruling that demands leadership and clear answers. And that's where things get more heated. 5 whole days have passed and Prime Minister Keir Starmer hasn't said a word about it. Not a comment, not a press release, not even a vague tweet. For a man who used to be a top human rights lawyer, his silence is starting to look more like avoidance. The public has noticed, his critics have definitely noticed, and even some of his own party members are wondering what he's waiting for. The tension is growing by the day. People want to know, where does he stand? Why hasn't he backed the ruling? Why hasn't he even acknowledged it? Starmer's quiet approach might have worked for smaller issues, but this one's different. It touches on identity, fairness, public safety, and personal rights all at once. It's not something you can ignore and hope goes away, and yet that seems to be exactly what he's doing. What's making this worse is his history with this topic. Over the years, Starmer has said a lot of different things when it comes to gender. At one point, he openly supported the idea that people should be able to legally declare their identity without medical checks. He said it was about dignity and human rights. But later, he changed his mind, saying the process needed more thought and more rules. That flip-flop confused many people. Was he trying to please everyone, or did he genuinely change his view? Even in interviews, he's often seemed unsure. When asked whether it was okay to say that only women have cervixes, he called that statement wrong, but then later admitted that biologically it was correct. That contradiction didn't sit well with either side of the debate. On another occasion, he disagreed with allowing transgender individuals into certain spaces reserved for females, but didn't explain why. These shifts have made it hard to pin down where he truly stands, and now that the country needs a straight answer, he's completely silent. Meanwhile, campaigners and legal experts are warning that this ruling needs strong political backing to be enforced properly. Some groups are already planning to challenge it, and without the Prime Minister's support, they just might succeed. That's why Starmer's silence isn't just awkward, it's risky. His inaction could weaken a legal decision that was meant to bring clarity. And it sends a message, intentional or not, that he's unwilling to defend the law when things get complicated. Since the Supreme Court's ruling last week clarified that the word woman in a key law refers to biological reality, not identity, Starmer's continued silence has stirred up frustration across the political spectrum. His refusal to say anything has opened the door to critics, campaigners, and even his own party members calling him out. J.K. Rowling, who has never shied away from speaking her mind on women's rights, took to social media and asked why the Prime Minister still hadn't spoken up. She applauded Conservative MP Cami Badenoch for standing firmly with women and made it clear that Starmer's quiet response isn't going unnoticed. Some even brought up his past hesitations on this topic, wondering if he's avoiding it because he doesn't want to upset certain groups. One user reminded people that Starmer struggled in the past to answer a very simple question. What is a woman? That memory hasn't aged well, especially now that the law has defined it for him, and he still refuses to comment. Labour supporters, particularly those from women's rights groups, are warning him that if he keeps dodging the issue, he'll only add to the confusion and damage his own credibility. But what's really raising eyebrows is what's happening behind closed doors. Inside the Labour Party, not everyone is on the same page. Leaked messages show that two high-profile Labour MPs, Dame Angela Eagle and Sir Chris Bryant, are planning to push back against this ruling. They're reportedly trying to organize meetings with other MPs who feel the court's decision should be challenged. Instead of cracking down on this internal rebellion, the government is turning a blind eye. According to Downing Street, these MPs aren't doing anything wrong. That excuse isn't sitting well with everyone. Mems Davies, the Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities, accused the government of trying to keep up appearances while doing nothing to enforce the ruling. Reform UK's Lee Anderson went even further, calling Starmer's silence disgraceful and accusing him of being afraid to defend what many see as a fair and reasonable judgment. Meanwhile, reports are suggesting that Labour may be quietly working on ways to bypass the new legal definitions altogether. Outside of Parliament, things are getting more intense. On April 19, thousands of transgender rights supporters gathered in London for an emergency protest. Their message was loud and emotional, demanding recognition and protection. But some signs at the event crossed a line. Placards showed threats directed at women who hold different views, and even J.K. Rowling was targeted with violent slogans. In another city, a statue honoring a historical women's rights figure was vandalized with offensive graffiti. This sparked outrage not just for the damage done, but for the tone of the protest itself. Some are now asking, why weren't the police acting faster? Police commentators pointed out that when other groups break the law during protests, arrests happen almost immediately. But in this case, the response seemed slower. That's led to accusations of double standards. If certain groups are treated more gently than others, it raises big questions about justice and fairness. And critics say Starmer needs to respond before the anger grows even louder. And now, changes are already being put into action. The British Transport Police have updated their rules, saying that trans women in custody will now be searched by male officers, in line with the new legal definition. This move shows just how quickly the ruling is being followed and why it's critical for the Prime Minister to step up and lead the conversation. Right now, silence isn't just risky, it's looking like weakness. The Supreme Court's recent ruling has set off a political firestorm, and the pressure is now building on Prime Minister Keir Starmer like never before. With the Equality and Human Rights Commission, EHRC, preparing to roll out new guidelines by summer 2025, major changes are coming fast. One of the biggest updates will impact how public services handle single-sex spaces. That includes everything from NHS hospital wards to women's shelters and changing rooms. Under this ruling, it's now legally clear that trans women, even those with gender recognition certificates, can be excluded from these spaces in certain cases to protect biological women's rights. At the same time, people who have changed their gender still have legal protection from discrimination. Groups like Stonewall and Scottish Trans have slammed the decision, calling it harmful and disappointing. They argue that it's a step backward for trans rights and undermines long-standing protections under the Gender Recognition Act. Sports could also be affected, though many governing bodies already have their own rules. But it's schools where things are really getting complicated. The teachers' union, NASUWT, is warning that the ruling might put transgender staff at risk, especially without proper guidance. As a result, they've called for a pause in implementing any changes until the government steps in with clear directions. Meanwhile, in many parts of the country, especially traditional labor areas, there's growing frustration with the whole debate. And that brings us straight back to Starmer. His silence in this has gone from puzzling to downright controversial. While he's been quiet on the ruling, he's still made time to comment on things like traffic jams and GP wait times. This has not gone down well with the press or the public. The Daily Mail didn't hold back, calling his silence a betrayal of all women, while others accused him of being more focused on not upsetting activists than actually leading. Starmer has also been accused of trying to sit on the fence, too afraid to upset either side of the debate. Some say he's hoping to avoid a fight with US President Donald Trump, especially with Chancellor Rachel Reeves heading to Washington soon. Trump has made his views on gender issues very clear and blunt, and there is concern in Downing Street that anything seen as too woke could cause friction. That's especially tricky with a possible UK to US trade deal on the line. But while Starmer hesitates, others are speaking out. Kemi Badenoch has already called for a fresh look at the current gender laws, saying they're outdated and don't reflect today's society. The EHRC is also pushing ahead, ready to force change if public bodies don't comply. One immediate change is already happening. The British Transport Police confirmed they'll now require trans women in custody to be searched by male officers following the court's clarification. That's just one of the many real-world impacts this ruling is having. Meanwhile, Starmer's critics are piling on. They say he can't keep dodging questions forever, and the podcast The Daily Tea even joked that Starmer might be hiding under a desk while calling on him to at least respect the court's decision publicly. Some experts, like journalist Isabel Oakeshott, say the solution is simple. Acknowledge the ruling, make it clear that legal decisions must be respected, and then encourage compassion and understanding for people on all sides. That kind of approach, he argues, would show leadership and calm the rising tensions. But right now, the lack of clarity is adding to the confusion. Several labor ministers have been accused of plotting to work around the ruling behind the scenes, and that's left many wondering who's really in charge. Media reports have suggested Labour may introduce new rules to soften the ruling's effects, which would only deepen the political fallout. And if that happens, it could create a clash between the government and the courts that will be hard to contain. April 22nd, 2025 is shaping up to be a big day. Do you think the rule is right? Do let us know in the comments section below, and for more such amazing videos, do subscribe to our channel.